Tanse, Darrel J. McLeod Nisiagaso. I should tell you that I'm reading for you from my little home here in the territory of Sauk First Nation, the Sauk people. Uh, Near the Salish Sea, I look out here and see the Salish Sea and the Olympic Mountains in the United States, and I'm surrounded by this beautiful rainforest. It's a true privilege and honor to live, work, and play in the territory of the Sauk people. I, however, as you probably know, I am Nehiyaw or Cree from northern Alberta from Treaty 8. So I'm going to read from the chapter entitled Fly Me to the Moon. And it's a point in my life where, well, it's quite self-explanatory, so I'll just launch into it. I stood on stage in a classy bar overlooking palm trees that lined the beach and seawall in Puerto Vallarta. Beyond the palms was a Maya blue ocean covered in gentle ripples. The sun had just set. I was holding a microphone, and to my left stood Raphael, the bearded guitarist who had been giving me lessons for the last 2 years. Behind me was Gary, a virile Mexican drummer with a provocative mustache, and beside him Roberto, a talented bass player I had admired in a number of shows around town. I counted them in, uno, dos, tres, cuatro, and launched into Bésame Mucho. Vigorous applause. Next we performed our version of Crimea River, followed by a bluesy song, Forget What I Said, by Nora Noor. We ended the set with Fly Me to the Moon, me singing the melody of the last verse up a major third. As I left the stage to get a glass of wine, both strangers and recent acquaintances approached me to shake my hand and chat. Later that night, back in my rustic Mexican apartment, I was too charged to sleep. My dream was coming true. I was becoming a jazz singer, and it was my second full winter in Puerto Vallarta. Stephen Harper's reckless layoffs of federal workers had served me well. I had taken early retirement and paid off my mortgage in Souk with the money from the buyout package. My Haida friend Frank Shannon brought his family from Edmonton to Puerto Vallarta for a vacation that winter, and on their third day there they invited me to go ziplining. Previously I had gone with my niece Jamie and her husband to Cabo Corrientes south of Puerto Vallarta and loved it. But on the eve of the zip line trip with Frank, I awoke in terror in the middle of the night, entangled in the simple sheet that covered me. I had dreamed about Dylan, my little nephew, his last visit to my house when he was 10. He had danced around my kitchen anticipating a summer feast of all the corn on the cob, steamed new potatoes, and barbecued hamburgers he could eat. Blackberry pie with ice cream for dessert. What a shock that a happy-go-lucky 13-year-old would want to take his own life, and on my birthday to boot. I remembered the other fun times with Dylan, hours splashing and swimming at Thetis Lake and French Beach, images of him as a toddler, poised regally in my white kitchen sink as his mother bathed him each night of the 3 months they lived with me. On a summer visit when he was in grade 3, he wrote me a note. It said, "Uncle, I'm a bad boy. I'm really bad." I should have asked him why he thought that, but I didn't. Why hadn't I found a way for Dylan to come and stay with me when he had reached out? Why was I so afraid of risk? My memories enthralled me. Suddenly I was convinced that if I were to go ziplining the next day with Frank, I would join Dylan, along with my siblings who had committed suicide, Debbie, Travis, and Trina. An image flashed through my mind of me pulling free of the zip line at its zenith and flying through the air into the river valley hundreds of feet below. It seemed inevitable. During the zip-line fun I'd had with my niece Jamie and her husband, I had briefly mused that this would be a phenomenal way to die. Now, I was actually thinking through the mechanics of it. I would need to study the harness release carefully so as not to botch it up. I didn't want to be injured and cause a scene, or have anyone see me go through the horrible stages of dying. For the first time ever, I felt I couldn't trust myself, even though I didn't understand why I would do it. I wasn't sad, depressed, or angry. I was experiencing incredible joy as a jazz singer, and I anticipated the many wonderful things ahead of me, completing my first book, Mama Scotch, more music, love, travel, great food, and adventure. The next day, along with the guilt, of not joining in the zipline trip with Frank and his boys. I had the bittersweet feeling that I'd escaped death, cheated fate, if that was possible. As much as scientists know about suicide, one element remains elusive. In the decisive moment, what is it that drives a person to actually go through with it? After extensive research and consultation with my exceptional family doctor, I came to understand that, in addition to life's daily trials and tribulations, there are genetic, cultural, and historic factors that influence a person's behavior in powerful ways. As a survivor of what some would call acculturation and others call genocide, and a survivor of systemic and individual racism, of sexual abuse and other family violence, I would have to remain vigilant for the rest of my life. I could never take a simplistic view of suicide, nor back away in abhorrence when somebody else mentioned it. Perhaps the only way to ensure that suicide never claimed me would be to help others to conquer its demon. It is a devil, what Moshum would have called a machimanto, whose time and moment of arrival is unpredictable and always shrouded in mystery. Hi, kinanas komitin.